The little girl's wheelchair rolled toward the edge of the hospital rooftop garden, one tiny hand slipping from its wheel as the brakes failed, and the first person who saw her was the man everyone in the building had mistaken for an ordinary maintenance worker. He was a single father, a former Navy SEAL who had survived missions that most people could never imagine, yet in that terrifying moment, it wasn't military training that made him move. It was the look in a child's eyes, the desperate look of someone who had stopped believing that tomorrow could be better. If you believe that kindness can heal wounds money cannot, that forgiveness can change lives, and that hope sometimes arrives from the most unexpected person, please like this video, leave a comment, share this story with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so our family can continue sharing stories that remind us there is still goodness in the world. The man who caught the wheelchair before it reached the roof's low stone barrier was named Callum Reed. At 38, Callum carried himself with the quiet discipline of someone who had spent years learning how to remain calm while everyone else panicked. He had served as a Navy SEAL, completed missions that had left invisible scars across his mind, and returned home believing that the hardest part of war would be behind him. He was wrong. The hardest battle began after he took off the uniform. His wife had died unexpectedly several years earlier, leaving him to raise their 8-year-old son, Everett, alone. Callum had learned how to make breakfast with one hand while tying school shoes with the other, how to attend parent-teacher meetings after exhausting shifts, and how to hide his own sadness whenever Everett asked why his mother could not come home. Eventually, Callum accepted a modest job maintaining facilities at a prestigious rehabilitation hospital in Connecticut. He did not talk about his military past. He did not want admiration. He wanted a quiet life where nobody expected him to be a hero. That hospital belonged to a woman named Vivian Ashford, one of the wealthiest technology entrepreneurs in the country. Vivian had built her company from a small apartment and eventually became a billionaire, but wealth had never prepared her for the one thing she could not purchase, a miracle for her daughter. Her 11-year-old daughter, Celeste, had been injured in a terrible accident when she was younger, leaving her unable to walk independently. Doctors had spent years trying different therapies, surgeries, braces, and experimental treatments. Celeste had once been an energetic child who loved horseback riding and drawing pictures of castles. After the accident, she slowly stopped asking questions. She stopped drawing. She stopped wanting visitors. Most painfully, she stopped believing her body belonged to her. Vivian responded by throwing money at every possible solution. She hired specialists, purchased equipment, funded research, and arranged private rehabilitation sessions with experts from around the world. But every failed treatment seemed to make Celeste withdraw further. The afternoon Callum first met Celeste, she was sitting alone beneath a flowering tree in the hospital garden. Her expensive wheelchair gleamed in the sunlight, but her expression was empty. Her mother had arranged another therapy session for that afternoon, and Celeste had refused to go. Vivian had been standing several yards away, watching through the glass doors, frustrated and frightened. She had begun to believe that perhaps she was failing as a mother because she could not buy her daughter's happiness. Callum was repairing a loose railing nearby when he noticed Celeste staring at a young boy across the garden. Everett was visiting his father during his school break, and he had accidentally dropped a small wooden toy soldier beside Celeste's chair. Before Callum could retrieve it, Celeste picked it up and examined it carefully. Instead of taking it from her, Callum crouched beside the wheelchair and simply waited. He noticed the tiny hesitation in her hands, the way she kept looking toward Everett, and the sadness behind her eyes. He did something nobody else had done. He did not ask what was wrong with her. He did not tell her she was brave. He did not promise that everything would be fine. He simply placed a small screwdriver on the ground and began fixing the wheel on an old gardening cart nearby. Celeste watched him for several minutes. Eventually, she moved her wheelchair closer. Callum noticed but said nothing. She watched his hands work, and after a while she pointed toward the cart, asking silently what he was repairing. Callum explained naturally, without making her feel like a patient. For the first time in months, Celeste became curious about something. Vivian watched the entire interaction from behind the glass. What surprised her most was not that Celeste had approached Callum. It was that Celeste had smiled. The next day, Celeste found Callum in the garden again. Then the day after that. Soon she began asking him about tools, machines, and the small repairs he made around the hospital. Callum discovered that Celeste loved engineering but had never been encouraged to explore it because everyone around her was focused on her disability. He began showing her simple mechanical principles using ordinary objects. He taught her how wheels distribute weight, how levers work, and how a small adjustment could make something move more easily. Celeste began designing inventions on paper again. Vivian became increasingly uneasy. She was grateful, but she also wondered who this mysterious maintenance worker really was. Her security team discovered Callum's military history and presented her with his records. Former Navy SEAL. Decorated service. Combat deployments. Medical retirement. Widower. Single father. Vivian became even more suspicious because people with backgrounds like his did not usually work quietly in hospital maintenance. She feared he had been placed near Celeste for reasons she could not understand. Her fear intensified when Callum refused a generous financial offer she made to privately tutor Celeste. He told her through his actions that Celeste did not need another expensive service. She needed someone who saw her as a person. Vivian interpreted his refusal as arrogance. Their relationship became strained. Then Celeste overheard her mother questioning Callum about his intentions. The little girl was devastated. She believed her mother was going to take away the only person who had helped her feel normal. She stopped attending therapy again and locked herself in her room, refusing to speak to anyone. Callum wanted to step in, but he understood that Celeste was Vivian's daughter, not his. He respected that boundary. Instead, he left a small handmade wooden device outside Celeste's door. It was a simple model wheelchair with adjustable wheels. Attached to it was a note explaining that sometimes the goal was not to make the road disappear but to build something that helped you travel farther on it. That message changed everything. Celeste began experimenting with the model. She discovered that changing the angle of the wheels made movement easier. She started drawing designs for a wheelchair attachment that could help children navigate uneven surfaces. Her physical therapist noticed the change immediately. Celeste was participating again. She was asking questions. She was exercising. She was dreaming. But just when things seemed to improve, an unexpected setback arrived. During a daytime therapy session, Celeste attempted a supported standing exercise and fell. She was not seriously injured, but emotionally the accident crushed her. She cried for the first time in front of everyone and declared that she hated her body. She said she would never be like other children. Callum happened to be nearby. He did not rush forward with empty encouragement. He sat a short distance away and allowed her to cry. Then he told her about the first time he returned home after his military service. He explained that he had expected himself to feel strong, but instead he felt lost. He had spent years measuring success by whether he could survive a dangerous mission. After coming home, he had to learn that survival itself was not the end of the journey. Sometimes, he said through his calm presence, surviving meant learning how to live differently. Celeste slowly looked up. Callum never told her she had to walk. He told her she deserved a life worth moving toward, whether she walked, rolled, climbed, adapted, or found another way. That was the moment Vivian realized she had been asking the wrong question for years. She had been asking, "How do I make my daughter walk again?" Callum had been asking something far more important. How do I help her believe her life still has possibilities? That realization shattered Vivian. For the first time, she admitted to herself that her obsession with finding a cure had partly been about her own guilt. She blamed herself for the accident because she had been away at a business event that day. She had convinced herself that if she spent enough money, she could erase the past. But Celeste did not need her mother to erase what happened. She needed her mother to stop treating her life as a tragedy. Vivian apologized to Celeste. Not as a billionaire, not as a powerful executive, but as a frightened mother who had made mistakes because she loved her child so deeply that she became afraid of the future. Celeste forgave her, and their relationship began changing. Weeks passed, and Celeste's wheelchair design attracted attention from the hospital's rehabilitation engineers. The device was simple but clever, designed to improve stability on rough surfaces. The hospital agreed to help her develop a prototype. Vivian offered funding, but this time she did something different. She asked Celeste what she wanted rather than deciding for her. Celeste wanted the invention to be affordable for children who could not afford expensive equipment. Callum smiled when he heard that. Then came the rooftop garden incident. Celeste had been participating in a daytime mobility exercise when a brake mechanism malfunctioned. Her wheelchair began rolling toward the edge. The therapists shouted and ran, but Callum was closest. His military instincts took over. He sprinted across the garden, grabbed the chair, and pulled it away from danger just seconds before disaster. Celeste was shaking. Callum was breathing hard. Vivian arrived moments later and froze when she saw them. For years, she had spent billions trying to protect her daughter from the world. Yet the person who had protected Celeste at the most frightening moment was a quiet single father who owned almost nothing compared with her. Vivian finally understood why Celeste trusted him. It was never because Callum had been a Navy SEAL. It was because he had never treated Celeste like she was broken. Months later, Celeste's prototype was completed. It became the first project funded through a new foundation created by Vivian, dedicated to affordable mobility technology for children. Celeste insisted that Callum help oversee the practical design because she trusted his judgment. Callum agreed only after making sure the project would remain focused on children rather than publicity. Everett became part of the Ashford family too, not because money suddenly changed Callum's life, but because friendship slowly grew between two families that had once lived completely different worlds. Celeste and Everett built inventions together, argued over designs, laughed over failed experiments, and learned that friendship did not care about wealth, disability, military history, or social status. Vivian changed as well. She began spending more afternoons with Celeste instead of living inside conference rooms. She stopped measuring love through expensive gifts. She learned that sometimes the most meaningful thing a parent can give a child is simply time. One afternoon, nearly a year after Callum first met Celeste, the hospital held a small demonstration of her invention. There were no cameras, no extravagant stage, and no press conference. Celeste rolled across the garden path using the new attachment she had designed. The path was uneven, but the wheels moved smoothly over it. She stopped beside Callum. He looked at her with quiet pride. Celeste did not need to stand to prove she was strong. She did not need to walk to prove she had a future. She had discovered something far greater. Her life did not have to resemble the life she had lost. Vivian stood nearby with tears in her eyes. She finally understood that the man she once suspected had not entered her daughter's life to take anything from her. He had given Celeste something no fortune could purchase: hope. Callum had entered the hospital carrying the invisible weight of war, grief, and fatherhood. He left that chapter of his life with something he never expected to find again: a community that felt like family. He learned that being a hero did not always mean running toward danger. Sometimes it meant sitting beside a frightened child and refusing to let her believe she was alone. And Celeste learned that disability could change the way she traveled through the world without determining where she was allowed to go. Just before the final demonstration ended, Celeste handed Callum a drawing. It showed 3 people beside a wheelchair: herself, Everett, and Callum. Above them was a bright sun and a winding road stretching toward the horizon. At the bottom she had written one simple sentence: "You helped me see that my road is still mine." If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. And before you go, leave a meaningful comment telling us what this story taught you about hope, kindness, forgiveness, or the way we see people who are different from us. Because sometimes the person who changes a life is not the richest person in the room, the most powerful person, or the person with the perfect answer. Sometimes it is the quiet person who chooses to stay when everyone else has given up. Sometimes hope does not arrive by fixing what was broken. Sometimes hope arrives by showing us that even after everything changes, there is still a beautiful road ahead.